Hello everyone, it's Melinda Jennison here from Streamline Property Buyers with another Brisbane Property Market update, helping you understand what the data is showing throughout our city and also some anecdotal stories of what we are actually seeing on the ground. First of all, looking at a market snapshot for the data up to the end of April 2024, we saw total listing volumes decline 8.31% on an annual basis according to SQM research. Auction clearance rates for the month 63.9%. Buyer activity for quality homes still fairly high throughout the city, driven by low supply. House values across the month increased 0.8% and unit values were up 1.6%. So gross yields for all dwellings in Brisbane now sitting at 3.9%. Now, it is a story of very tight supply. So when we look at the listing volumes, we can see that the SQM research data shows that listing volumes were again lower throughout the month of April compared to March. So new listings to start off, they were down 14.27% month on month. And you can see that between the bars that exist in the zoomed in version here. Now, total listings, they were also down 8.15% month on month. And what's interesting here is that both new listings and total listings are also down year on year. So we've got new listings, total listings down 8.31% year on year. But in actual fact, to tell the truth, new listings were actually up slightly from last year at the same time. So whilst buyers are still very active in the market, they do have less stocked as a whole based on total listings to choose from, and that's what's creating these competitive conditions. Now, sales volumes very competitive in Brisbane. This is an indication of buyer activity. So 4.4% increased sales volumes year on year, according to CoreLogic data here in Brisbane. So that buyer demand is still strong. So we've got auction clearance rates there across the 3 months of February, March and April, fairly stable, sitting between 63 to 65%. Now, according to Apollo Auctions data, we also saw on average 3.1 registered bidders per auction in Brisbane during April. And of those, 62.6% of registered bidders were actively participating in the bidding activity. So these are all indicators of strong buyer demand in the market. Now, days on market, that is 15.3% lower than last year. So that is an indication of the speed at which properties are transacting here in Brisbane. So it's a much more competitively sought out market right now. Let's look at dwelling values. Remember, this combines both units and townhouses and houses into one data set. So monthly increase of 0.9% here in Brisbane, quarterly change of 3.1%, and an annual increase of 16.1% over the last 12 months. So that's putting the median value of a dwelling in Greater Brisbane at $827,822. And yes, that is higher than the median dwelling value in Melbourne. But as you will see in some slides to come, that the house market and the unit market are still more affordable here in Brisbane compared to Melbourne. So this is the CoreLogic data. Also looking at PropTrack data, we saw positive growth throughout the month of April, 0.23%, and strong growth there over an annual basis of 12.82%. Again, this is all dwellings, so it mixes both units and townhouses. One thing I always like to look at is the price segmentation. So one thing we've noticed in the 3 months up to the end of February compared to the 3 months up to the end of March, the bottom end of the market has actually continued to grow in value at a faster rate, where you can see here it was 3.8%, and then it moved to 4.2%, whereas the top end of the market, where it was 2.2%, it dropped down to 2% growth. So what this tells us is that the more affordable end of the market is actually growing in value at a faster rate over the last quarter. Now that combines both units, townhouses and houses all into one data set. And as you'll see when we segment the property type, the unit market is outperforming the housing market in a very strong way, and that would be contributing to this data shift. Nationally, over the last 12 months, you can see the top 3 capital city markets have been Perth, Brisbane, and then Adelaide. So Brisbane has had very strong performance over the last 12 months at a national level. Looking at the last quarter, you can see that Perth still ahead in terms of its growth performance, and Brisbane and Adelaide sitting in close proximity to each other in second and third place on a national basis. Now let's have a look at house values. So house values have increased 0.8% throughout the month of April. That's actually down slightly from last month. And so it does suggest that the housing market has started to slow its rate of growth once again. House values over the quarter have shifted 2.7% in Brisbane, and annual growth has now been 15.9% in this segment of the market. So the median value for a house here in Brisbane is now $920,046. So you can see there that median value is still lower than the median value for a house in Melbourne. And also for the median value, it's also lower than the median value for a house in Canberra. So whilst that gap is closing and quite rapidly, especially between Brisbane and Melbourne, Brisbane is still more affordable when we look at those median values based on property type. Looking at the gross yields for a house in Greater Brisbane, that's now currently sitting at 3.6%. PropTrack data also confirms throughout April that house values grew 0.1% and showed annual growth of 12.44%. So both data sets showing the same positive growth trend. Now, the unit market shows a very different story. Unit price growth over the month of April has re-accelerated yet again here in Brisbane, 1.6% growth across the unit market. Remember, compare that to 0.8% in the housing market. So very, very strong performance in this segment of the market. Quarterly growth sitting at 5% for units and annual growth sitting at 17.4%. So units definitely outperforming the housing market in Brisbane on a monthly, quarterly and annual basis. Gross yields for a unit in Greater Brisbane currently sitting at 5%. And for the first time in history, the median value of a unit in Greater Brisbane has surpassed that $600,000 price point. But you can see here, Brisbane units are still more affordable than Melbourne, although they have become more expensive than units in Canberra. So it's always good to get a market snapshot against all other capital cities to see how each price point is performing. Looking at PropTrack information, it also confirmed unit values shifted 0.94% across the month of April, and that equates to 15.08% over the last 12 months, according to PropTrack data. Now, this really shows the story between houses and units and how they have changed in their performance over many months. So this tracks from the beginning of COVID in January 2020 all the way through to the end of April 2024. And those dark blue lines are the house market monthly price movements and the light blue lines are the unit market performance. And what we can see is in this phase since interest rates have been escalating, the unit market has actually outperformed the housing market. And that's definitely coming through even more recently, especially in the last 2 months where we've seen the house market start to pull back a little, whereas the unit market has continued to accelerate. Now, there's many reasons for that. Potentially affordability comes into play, but also property type and location. It's also starting to influence buyer activity. We've got first home buyers competing with downsizers and investors all competing for the same stock. So it is relative to the number of buyers in the market for this particular product type. Let's have a look at the rental market. So vacancy rates in Brisbane have remained consistently low since January this year, between 1 and 0.9%. So you can see here that we're still at 1% vacancy, according to that SQM research. So this implies not enough properties available for rent based on the number of tenants in the market looking to rent. And that's what's causing this upward pressure on rents. Let's have a look at how rents are growing. So the annual change in rents in the house market in Brisbane sitting at 7.9%. And over the last 3 months, that has been growing slightly. So we're seeing some more strength in rental price growth across all of Greater Brisbane, according to CoreLogic. The annual change in rents in the unit market is currently 10.5%. That's actually been slipping over the last few months. So although it's still stronger than the housing market, that rate of growth is starting to slow. So those in those areas that are occupied by units may see some of those rental price growth hikes start to ease based on the data that we're seeing. So just to summarise, Brisbane house growth rate is slowing, and we've seen that compared to the unit price growth across the city over the last couple of months. And the unit price growth is actually accelerating. So we're continuing to see strength in that segment of the market. Brisbane is the third highest capital city growth rate over the last 3 months and over the last 1 month. So performance is still strong. Of course, Perth as a city is outperforming all other areas at the moment. Units and townhouses here in Brisbane are outperforming the house market, and that's being recorded on a monthly, annual and quarterly basis. So we're seeing units outperform houses also in the annual rate of rental price growth. And of course, gross yields in that segment of the market are stronger than gross yields in the housing segment of the market. Now, low supply is one of the ongoing reasons that we are seeing this strong price growth. And there's continued high demand that continues to put upward pressure on prices. I hope that's been a helpful summary of what's happening here in Brisbane. Feel free to connect with us by scanning this QR code. You will get access to a lot of free resources that will help you on your property buying journey, especially if you are looking to purchase here in Brisbane. If you have any questions, you can also book a call through this link. Thank you so much for your time today, and bye for now.